What would you do if a camera in your own home showed you the one thing you never wanted to see? My name's Grant Holloway, 38 years old, and last month, my life cracked open on a laptop screen. I'd installed hidden cameras to protect my family after a string of break-ins. I forgot to tell my wife, Melissa. No big deal, at least that's what I thought. But when the app warned me the storage was full, I sat down to review the footage and saw a silver Honda pulling into my driveway. Again and again, until the moment Melissa opened our front door and wrapped her arms around a man who wasn't me. If you've ever faced a truth that punched straight through your chest, stay with me. Subscribe and follow this story, because it only gets harder from here. When I was 8 years old, I came home from school to a quiet house. No cartoons on, no pan clattering in the kitchen. Just a single sheet of paper on the counter in my dad's handwriting. He said the money stress was too much. He said he couldn't do it anymore. Then he was gone. After that, it was my mom and me against the world. She picked up every shift she could get. Nights at the hospital, days at a diner, eyes red, feet swollen, still somehow packing my lunch in the morning. Most evenings it was canned noodles, the glow of the TV, and an empty chair where my father used to sit. She never badmouthed him, not once. She just kept saying, "We'll be okay. I'll keep a roof over our heads." Watching her drag herself through each day, I felt something harden inside me. I looked at that empty chair and made a promise only a kid can make. I will never be that man. But I had no idea that promise would one day destroy my marriage. By 16, while other kids were wasting gas and time, I was stocking shelves and flipping burgers. Every paycheck, I'd stare at the numbers, then stash most of it away. I wasn't chasing a sports car or some big dream. I was running from the memory of my mom at the kitchen table, crying over bills she tried to hide from me. I studied because I had to, not because I loved it. Community college, night classes, any path that smelled like stability. Eventually I landed in finance. Nothing flashy, just steady work helping other people not drown in the same money panic I grew up in. In my head, being a man was simple math. You put food on the table, you keep the lights on, you show up. I didn't have a wife yet, didn't have a kid, didn't even have a house with my name on the deed. But somewhere along the way, I started looking in the mirror and thinking, like it or not, I'm the man of the house now. And one day, this had better mean nobody under my roof ever feels what I felt as a kid. All that provide, protect, don't be your father stuff was just theory, until I met Melissa. I was sitting in the waiting room at a dental clinic scrolling my phone when I heard this voice at the front desk, soft, steady, calming down an old guy who was terrified of getting a root canal. I looked up and saw her, Melissa, ponytail, simple makeup, tired eyes but a real smile, not the fake customer service kind, the kind my mom used to have when she was dead on her feet but still trying. We made small talk while I was checking out. Weather, work. Then somehow it turned into kids. She said, "One day, I just want to be a mom, like full-time, actually be there." That hit something deep in me. A woman who wanted the job my mom never got to fully have. Our first dates were nothing fancy. Cheap diners, split fries, driving around the suburbs with the windows down, talking about everything and nothing. Somewhere between the bad coffee and the late-night drives, I remember thinking, clear as day, I honestly thought Melissa was my forever person. A few years later, I was standing in front of her with a ring I'd saved way too long for, hands shaking more than I'd like to admit. She said yes before I even finished the sentence. We didn't have some huge fairy tale wedding, just a small ceremony in a church, a rented suit, her in a simple white dress, family and a few close friends. It wasn't perfect, but it felt right, solid, real. Not long after, we signed our names on a 30-year mortgage for a 2-story place in the Colorado suburbs. Beige siding, tiny backyard, creaky steps. To me, it was a castle, a roof that was ours. I started working 50, 60 hours a week. Long days, late calls, but I did everything I could to make it home for dinner. Sitting across from her at that little kitchen table made the grind feel worth it. Melissa told me more than once, "One day, I just want to stay home with our kids, be there for them." And I looked her in the eye and said, "I'll make sure you can." In those moments, I felt like I was finally keeping that promise to the 8-year-old kid inside me. My family won't go through what I went through. I honestly thought I was doing everything right. I still remember the night Melissa told me she was pregnant. We were standing in the kitchen, half-eaten leftovers on the counter, when she slid a little plastic stick across the table. I saw the lines, looked up at her, and we both just broke. Not in a bad way. Tears, shaking, laughing like idiots in that tiny kitchen. After that, I cranked my life into overdrive. More clients, longer hours, saying yes to every meeting I could. Not because I wanted a bigger truck or some fancy vacation, but because there was a kid coming who was never going to feel the kind of fear I grew up with. When they handed me Noah in the hospital, this little red, angry bundle, I felt my whole chest cave in. I counted his fingers, his toes, whispered, "I got you, buddy," into his ear like a promise. Melissa decided to quit her job and stay home with him. I backed her 100%. That was the dream, right? Being a provider mattered. But in that moment, holding him, I knew one thing for sure. Being a dad was the one job I refused to fail at. For a while, it felt like we'd actually nailed it. I went to work in the morning. Melissa stayed home with Noah. By the time I pulled into the driveway at night, there'd be toys in the yard and fingerprints on the glass. That mess used to feel like proof I was doing something right. Evenings were simple. Dinner at the table, nothing fancy, just whatever we could throw together. Noah in his booster seat, smearing food everywhere, Melissa laughing while I pretended to be mad. After that, we'd pile onto the couch, some kids' show droning in the background while I helped Noah build lopsided Lego towers on the coffee table. There was a quiet kind of peace in those routines. Bills were paid, roof over our heads, my kid asleep down the hall. For a guy who grew up on canned noodles in an empty chair, that felt like luxury. Sometimes I'd apologize for the long hours. Melissa would shake her head and say, "You're doing what a man's supposed to do." And I believed her. For a long time, I honestly believed we were solid. But perfect lives don't crack all at once. They crack quietly, and then they collapse. For a long time, the worst thing that ever happened on our street was a kid riding his bike too fast. Then, one week, everything shifted. First, it was a post on the neighborhood Facebook group, someone's garage broken into 2 blocks over. Then another house. Then another. Next door lit up with doorbell clips and grainy screenshots. Guys in hoodies, middle of the day, in and out in minutes. We had a community meeting at the local church. Folding chairs, burnt coffee, worried faces. Officer Ramirez stood up front, walking us through it. Daytime hits, grab the small stuff, electronics, jewelry, anything you can carry and flip fast. He kept saying, "Make your house a harder target. Lights, signs, cameras. Don't make it easy for them." I sat there thinking about Melissa and Noah at home while I was across town in an office, staring at spreadsheets. Front door unlocked for a package. Backyard gate half closed. I've never seen myself as some paranoid tinfoil hat guy. But something in my gut wouldn't shut up. Protect your family. After that meeting, I went down a rabbit hole. Not conspiracy videos, just Amazon reviews and comparison charts. Blink, Ring, Wise. Every brand had 100 opinions under it. I wasn't looking to turn my house into Fort Knox. I just wanted something simple. A couple of small cameras, motion alerts, an app on my phone so I could check in while I was stuck in traffic on the way to my next client. I settled on a basic 4-camera system. One for the front door, one for the backyard, 2 inside covering the living room and kitchen. No mics, no crazy subscriptions, just local storage and motion detection. An extra layer of peace of mind, that's how I justified the price tag to myself. In my head, this was what a man of the house does. You don't wait for something bad to happen and then cry about it. You get ahead of it. I wasn't trying to spy on anyone. I wasn't chasing drama. I just wanted to keep my family safe. One weekend, Melissa packed up Noah and drove him over to her parents' place. It was just me and the house. For the first time in a while, the silence actually felt useful. I opened the box with the cameras and got to work. One over the front door, watching the walkway and driveway. One in the backyard, covering the fence line. One in the living room, one in the kitchen, where most of our life actually happened. I synced them to the app, walked around like an idiot waving at my phone, tweaking angles until the shots looked right. By the time I finished, my back hurt, my head was pounding, and I still had laundry in the dryer. I remember thinking, I'll tell Melissa when she gets back. No rush. It's just security. Then work got busy. Noah got sick. Life piled on top of life. I didn't hide it on purpose. I just never brought it up. And that one lazy mistake changed everything. For a while after that, the cameras were just another app on my phone. Every now and then, on my lunch break, I'd tap it open, see Melissa chasing Noah through the living room, or him parked in front of a cartoon while she folded laundry. Nothing dramatic, just life. The break-ins in the neighborhood slowed down. People put up motion lights, protected by signs, all that. The group chats stopped buzzing so much. Things went back to normal, or at least that's how it felt. Meanwhile, my phone kept lighting up with motion alerts. Half of them were Melissa walking through the kitchen, or Noah running past the camera with a toy over his head. After a couple weeks of constant buzzing, I shut the notifications off. The system kept recording in the background, filling up its little memory card day after day. I barely thought about it. In my mind, the house was safe, my family was fine, everything was under control. The cameras just faded into the background, until that one notification. It happened on a random Friday afternoon. I was between meetings, killing a few minutes in the parking lot, when my phone buzzed. Not a text, not an email, a little banner from the camera app I hadn't opened in months. Storage almost full. Old footage will be deleted in 48 hours. I almost swiped it away. Then I thought, could be nice to see what the house looks like when I'm not there. Melissa in the kitchen, Noah running around in his socks, the everyday stuff I missed while I was out killing myself at work. On the drive home, I made a plan. Saturday morning, no work, no errands, just me, a cup of coffee, and 6 or 7 months of our life on a screen. A private little highlight reel of the family I was so proud of. The next morning, I closed my home office door, set my coffee down, opened my laptop, and logged into the app. I thought I was about to watch sweet family moments. I was wrong. But what I found wasn't a highlight reel. It was evidence. The first clips were exactly what I expected. I scrubbed through days at double speed, watching my family live without me. There was Melissa sweeping up crumbs, switching laundry, talking on the phone with a dish towel over her shoulder. Noah chasing a ball through the living room, tripping over his own feet, popping back up like it was nothing. Sunlight cutting across the kitchen table while she helped him with a snack. Little things. The kind of moments you don't think about when you're in them. The kind you miss when you're in traffic on the other side of town trying to close a deal. I found myself smiling at the screen like an idiot. My son laughing, my wife spinning him around in the kitchen, both of them out of breath. For a minute, it felt good. I leaned back in my chair and thought, this is what I'm busting my auk for. This is it. This is the payoff. For a while, all I saw was a normal, happy home. Then I kept scrolling. Somewhere around month 4 or 5 in the footage, something started to feel off. I was skipping through days on fast forward when a car caught my eye. A silver Honda, parked in my driveway, early afternoon. At first I didn't think much of it. Could have been a delivery, a neighbor turning around, somebody lost. Stuff like that happens all the time in the suburbs. But a few days later in the footage, there it was again. Same angle, same car, same time of day. I rewound, checked the date stamp, then jumped ahead a week. There it was, again. That little itch in the back of my brain woke up. I slowed the playback down every time that Honda appeared, watching it roll into frame like it belonged there. Once or twice is random. 3, 4, 5 times, same car, same time of day, over and over. I didn't know what was wrong yet, I just knew something was. Cars don't lie, people do. The next time the Honda showed up on screen, I didn't fast forward. I let it play in real time. The car stops, engine off, driver's door opens. Some guy I've never seen in my life steps out. Late 30s, maybe early 40s. Casual clothes, no uniform, no clipboard, no package in his hands. And the way he moved, he didn't look around, didn't check the house number, didn't hesitate at the sidewalk the way you do when you're not sure you're at the right place. He just shut the door, adjusted his jacket, and walked straight up my driveway, right toward my front door like he'd done it 100 times. I was leaning in toward the laptop before I even realized it, heart starting to pound for no good reason I could explain. Who the hell is this guy? I muttered to myself. Because the truth hit me all at once, cold and sharp. He walked up to my front door like he owned the place. I kept my eyes on the screen as the guy reached my porch. A second later, the front door opened and Melissa stepped into frame. She was smiling. Not the tight little polite smile she gives delivery guys. This was full, relaxed, like she'd been looking forward to this moment all day. There's no audio on that camera, so I couldn't hear a word. But I didn't need sound to read the body language. She leaned in. He leaned in. And she wrapped her arms around him. Slow, familiar, holding on just a little too long. That was not a, "Hey, thanks for dropping this off" hug. That was a, "I've missed you" hug. The kind I hadn't felt from her in a long time. They turned and disappeared into my house together, out of the frame, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I realized my hand was still on the mouse, frozen. My whole body felt hollow. It felt like someone reached through the screen and punched me right in the gut. But that hug was nothing compared to what I saw next inside my own living room. I sat there for a few seconds, staring at the empty doorway on the screen, telling myself I hadn't really seen what I'd just seen. Then I dragged the timeline back and watched it again. Same car, same walk, same smile, same hug. My brain went straight into damage control. Maybe he's family, a cousin, an old friend from high school, somebody she forgot to mention. I racked my memory for the name Derek. I'd heard it once, maybe twice. Someone from the gym, an old coworker, always tossed out casually enough that I never thought twice. Now, every half-remembered mention felt like a red flag I'd ignored. I pulled up footage from other days around the same time. There was the Honda again. There he was again. Always the same rhythm. Arrive, smile, hug, disappear inside. My gut already knew what this was. But my heart was still fighting it. I wanted so badly to believe there was an innocent explanation. At some point, replaying that front door hug wasn't enough. I needed to know what happened after they disappeared. So I switched cameras. Living room. Same date. Same time. There they were. Melissa and this guy, Derek, sitting on our couch. My couch. 2 glasses on the coffee table. They were talking, laughing, leaning toward each other like they didn't have a care in the world. At first it was just conversation and smiles. Then their knees touched and neither of them moved away. His hand brushed against hers and stayed there. She didn't flinch, didn't pull back. After a while she shifted closer, her shoulder resting against him like it lived there. He put his arm around her, casual, practiced, like he'd done it 100 times. And then, right there in my living room, under the TV I paid for and the pictures of our son on the wall, he pulled her in and kissed her. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a bad angle. They were doing things a married woman has no business doing with any man but her husband. Once that line was crossed on screen, something in me snapped from maybe to this is real. I stopped looking for excuses and started looking for patterns. I pulled up the calendar view on the app, day after day, week after week. Every time I saw that little motion marker around early afternoon, I clicked it. The same silver Honda in the driveway, the same man at my front door, the same easy smile on Melissa's face. Sometimes they'd sit and talk first. Sometimes he'd barely be inside before they were on each other. Different days, different clothes, same story, laughing, touching, kissing, disappearing out of frame together. If it had been one bad night, one drunk mistake, I don't know how I would have handled it. I'm not saying I'd have forgiven her, but at least I could have put it in a box in my head. But this was scheduled, repeated, maintained. This wasn't a one-time lapse. This was an affair living inside my house. And I realized I'd been the only one who thought we were still in the same marriage. Catching them together in the living room was bad enough. I could have stopped there. I should have stopped there. But I kept digging. One clip popped up on a weekday when I knew Noah wasn't at preschool. We'd kept him home with a mild fever. I didn't see him anywhere on the living room camera, which felt wrong. If Noah's awake, you know it. He's in every room at once. I checked the timestamp, then switched over to the hallway camera. There was Melissa, walking Noah down the hall. She led him into his bedroom, said something, then pulled the door shut. A second later, the handle turned from the outside, like she was making sure it was closed. A few minutes after that, Derek walked in the front door like always. Melissa met him, laughing, touching his arm, leading him right back to the living room, where they curled up together while my son was shut in his room. No cartoon, no toys on the floor, just a closed door and a muffled, frustrated little cry every now and then. She locked our 4-year-old son in his room so she could be alone with her lover. I thought betrayal had a limit. I was wrong. If that had been the worst of it, maybe I could have told myself she just lost her mind for a season, but it kept getting uglier. I pulled up another day, one where Noah was supposed to be at preschool. The school's schedule is burned into my brain. Drop off at 9, pick up at noon. Simple. The camera timeline showed motion at the front door a little after 11, Derek arriving. Again, I watched the timestamps crawl. 11:15, 11:40, 12:05. They were still in my house, still touching, still laughing, still wrapped up in their little bubble. The first time Melissa showed up on camera leaving the house was a little after 1. Hair fixed, makeup touched up, like she'd just gotten ready for the day. Keys in hand, rushing out like she was late for something important. All I could see in my head was Noah sitting in a tiny plastic chair by the preschool door, lunchbox in his lap, watching other kids run into the arms of moms who actually showed up on time. My little boy was sitting there waiting, while his mom was too busy cheating. At some point, my brain just hit a wall. I closed the laptop because I physically couldn't take in one more second of video. The room went quiet, but inside my head, it was loud as hell. I don't know if I sat there for 10 minutes or 2 hours. Time kind of broke. All the years I'd spent building this life, every late night at the office, every I'm fine when I wasn't, every sacrifice, suddenly felt like they were made out of glass and someone had taken a bat to them. I kept seeing the same images on a loop. Melissa smiling at him at my front door, Melissa locking Noah in his room, Melissa fixing her hair in the hallway mirror before letting Derek in. And underneath all of it was this one question that made me sick. Did any of it mean anything to her? Any of the vows, the talks, the plans? It didn't just break my heart, it broke something in my soul. Eventually, real life forced its way back in. I heard cabinets in the kitchen, Noah's little footsteps, the clink of plates, dinner time, family time. I wiped my face, took a breath that didn't do a damn thing, and walked out of the office like I hadn't just watched my marriage die on a screen. Melissa was at the stove, Noah babbling about something with his cars. She glanced up, studied me for a second and said, "You okay? You look off." I lied without even thinking. "Rough day at work, client being a pain." She nodded, gave me this soft, concerned look like she was still my teammate. Then she reached out, put her hand on my arm, and gave me that small, gentle smile, the same one I'd just watched her give another man. So I sat there at the table, eating dinner with my wife and my son, playing my part while every nerve in me was screaming. Watching her act like a loving wife after what I'd seen, that was its own kind of hell. Over the next few days, I caught myself just watching her. Not the cameras this time. Her, in real life. The way she moved around the kitchen, the way she laughed at something on her phone, the way she'd drift off into her own little world mid-conversation, then snap back with a smile. Before, I'd written all that off as, she's tired or she needs a break. Now every gesture felt like part of a script I hadn't known she was reading from. She'd be texting, grin at the screen, and when I asked, "Who's that?" she'd toss out, "Just one of the girls." And all I could hear was Derek. At night she'd say, "I love you," roll over, and go to sleep like nothing was wrong. Those 3 words used to feel like home. Now they sounded hollow, like lines from a play we'd already closed. I started wondering how many of our good memories were built on lies. My first instinct was pure fire. There were moments I wanted to walk into the living room, grab her phone, throw the clips up on the TV, and make her watch herself. Make her see what I saw. Make her feel even half of what I was feeling. In my head, I rehearsed it 100 ways. The shouting, the accusations, the how could you. But every time I played that movie in my mind, there was always one constant. Noah. Him standing in the doorway, eyes wide. Him crying when voices got too loud. Him watching plates slam down or doors slam shut and not understanding why his safe place suddenly wasn't safe. One night, lying awake next to a woman I no longer trusted, I asked myself, if I blow this up right now, who pays the highest price? The answer wasn't me, wasn't even her. It was our little boy. My anger wanted to destroy her. My love for my son told me to think. So I made the hardest choice a father can make. After that, every thought I had ran through the same filter. Is this good for Noah? I couldn't get that image out of my head. My little boy shut in his room, tiny hands on the door, while his mother laughed with another man a few feet away. It didn't feel like just cheating anymore. It felt like abandonment. Melissa hadn't only betrayed me as a wife, she'd betrayed the one job I thought she wanted most, being a mom. And that's when my own mom came back into focus. Dead on her feet, working 2-3 jobs, but still showing up at school plays, still waiting in the parking lot on time, still making sure I never wondered if she cared. She never locked me away so she could have adult time. Putting those two women side by side in my mind made something crystal clear. I could forgive a lot as a husband. As a father, not so much. I could live with being a divorced man. I couldn't live with being the kind of father who lets this slide. Once I put the word divorce in my head, even quietly, everything looked different. I started thinking back to our wedding day, standing there in a rented suit, listening to the pastor say, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health. I remember taking those words like a contract written in blood, non-negotiable. Now watching Melissa move through our house like nothing was wrong, I realized I'd been the only one still honoring that contract. It hit me like a second wave of shame, not just hurt, but humiliation. I felt like the last guy in the room who doesn't know the joke is about him. The husband playing happy family while everyone else has already seen the ending. Pain I could handle. I'd been dealing with pain since I was 8. But this quiet, crawling sense that I'd been living in a story that only existed in my head, that was something else. I realized our marriage only existed in my head. On her side, it had already ended. And as much as it killed me to admit it, I knew I deserved better than this. And Noah sure as hell did. Once I admitted to myself the marriage was done, the next ugly step was obvious. I needed a lawyer. So I sat at the kitchen table late at night with my laptop open, the same house around me that I was now planning to walk away from. Family law attorney, Colorado, custody, adultery. I read reviews, scanned star ratings, looked for words like custody battles, father's rights, high conflict divorce. Every name I clicked felt like another little crack in the life I thought I had. I asked a coworker who'd been through a divorce. He slid a business card across my desk. Baker Law Group. Not cheap, he said, but they know what they're doing. I put all the footage onto a USB drive, my wife's betrayal compressed into a few cold gigabytes of evidence. The night before my appointment, I barely slept. It felt like I was betraying Melissa and protecting Noah at the exact same time. Walking into that lawyer's office the next morning felt like walking into the end of my old life. Baker's office was neat, quiet, smell of coffee and copier paper. I sat across from him with that USB drive in my hand, gripping it so hard my fingers ached. He asked me to start from the beginning. So I did. The cameras, the Honda, the hugs. Noah locked in his room. Preschool pickups an hour late. I kept it as factual as I could, but my voice still cracked in places. Then I pushed the USB across the desk. He plugged it in, watched the footage like he was reviewing security tapes from a store, not the collapse of a family. No flinching, no shock, just a slow nod every now and then. When it was over, he leaned back and said, "This is strong evidence. Adultery plus neglect. Judges pay attention to that. It will help with custody and with blocking alimony." Hearing that was like getting oxygen and a knife at the same time. It felt wrong that I needed evidence to prove my wife was dangerous for my son, but I was grateful I had it. Baker laid it out like a battle plan. "Don't confront her yet," he said. "Stay quiet, keep the cameras running. We'll file for divorce, ask for primary custody, and serve her when your son's at school. You don't want him in the blast radius." Every part of me that was a husband wanted to scream, "No, I'm not waiting, I'm done." But the part of me that was a father knew he was right. So we started the paperwork. Petitions, financial disclosures, custody requests, all those cold legal words that basically mean take this life apart and divide the pieces. My job was to go home and act like I knew none of it. Same good morning kiss, same small talk about groceries and bills, same love you, drive safe. Inside, I'd already left the marriage. On paper, I was still in it. I was already done with the marriage, but for a few more weeks I had to keep playing my role. I did it for one reason: Noah. Pretending was easy. Sleeping in the same house with her wasn't. Those next few weeks were some of the strangest of my life. On the surface, nothing changed. Melissa still texted, still laughed to herself, still went out for errands. And like clockwork, the silver Honda kept showing up when I was at work. Only now, every visit added to a folder in my mind labeled evidence, not heartbreak. I'd come home, eat dinner with her, put Noah to bed, then sit alone in my office and review the footage Baker told me to save. The hugs, the kisses, the way she fixed her hair before opening the door. At some point, my hand stopped shaking when I hit play. The shock wore off and turned into something colder, detached. I stopped seeing her as my wife on that screen. I started seeing her as the woman hurting my son. But every time Noah's little body wandered into frame, a toy in his hand looking for his mom, my chest tightened all over again. He was the only reason I was still in that house. The morning we served the papers, Noah had preschool. I packed his lunch, tied his shoes, kissed the top of his head like it was any other day. Melissa poured coffee, asked what time I'd be home, completely unaware that a stranger would be knocking on our door in a few hours with an envelope that would blow her world open. On the drive to work, my stomach was in knots. Baker had timed it so the process server would come by late morning when Melissa was usually home alone. I kept checking my phone even though I knew it wouldn't make it any easier. Around late morning, her name lit up my screen. I let it ring, once, twice, 3 times. Took a long breath, then answered. Her voice was shaking, angry and scared all at once. "Grant, what is this? Divorce papers? What are you doing?" I listened, waiting for that old familiar stab in my chest, but hearing her say, "What is this? Divorce?" didn't hurt as much as I expected. I was already gone. She didn't ease into it. She went straight to shouting, "How could you do this? Why didn't you talk to me? We could have worked on this, Grant. You blindsided me." I let her vent for a few seconds, then cut in, calm in a way that surprised even me. "Melissa," I said, "I've already seen the footage." There was this long, heavy silence on the line. I could almost hear her brain scrambling, replaying whatever she thought she'd hidden. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. First came the denial. "It's not what you think." Then the begging, "Please, we can fix this." And finally the blame. "If you weren't always at work, if you actually paid attention to me." I let her finish, then answered, firmer this time. "This isn't about me not being perfect," I said. "This is about you locking our son in his room so you could cheat. This is about you leaving him sitting at preschool while you were busy with another man." Silence again. "You didn't just cheat on me," I told her. "You cheated on Noah." The weeks after that phone call were a blur of paperwork and waiting rooms, petitions, affidavits, financial statements. Every signature felt like another shovel of dirt on the grave of our marriage. Melissa hired her own lawyer and came out swinging. She wanted alimony. She wanted equal time with Noah. On paper, she talked like she was the stable parent, and I was just the paycheck. Then came the hearings. Fluorescent lights, stiff chairs, a judge who'd seen way too many families fall apart to be shocked by one more. Baker laid it all out. Not with emotion, just facts. The dates, the affair, the footage of Noah locked in his room, the timestamps showing Melissa leaving the house long after preschool pickup time. They played some of the clips. No sound, just images. Melissa staring down at the table while her own life played on the screen behind her. For the first time, other people could see what I'd seen alone on that laptop. It didn't feel good. It just felt necessary. The day of the final decision, my hands wouldn't stop shaking no matter how tight I clenched them. Melissa sat at the other table, eyes red, lawyers on both sides like bookends. The judge went through everything slowly. The marriage, the The affair, the cameras, the clips of Noah, our finances, the prenup we'd signed back when we actually believed in forever. Then he said the part that mattered most to me. Primary physical custody of Noah would go to me. Melissa would get supervised visitation to start, with counseling and parenting classes required before anything more. Because of the prenup and the documented adultery, there'd be no alimony. We'd split assets according to the agreement. I'd keep the house so Noah wouldn't have to lose his home on top of everything else. It was, objectively, a win. Any lawyer would have called it a strong outcome. But sitting there, listening to the judge dismantle the life I'd tried to build, I didn't feel like I'd won anything. I just felt like Noah had been given a real chance. Winning in court doesn't mean you win in life. After the dust settled, it was just me and Noah in that house. Same address, same rooms, but it felt like a completely different place. I cut my hours back. Told my firm I'd take fewer clients, fewer late meetings. They didn't love it, but I wasn't asking for permission. Mornings became our thing. I learned how to burn pancakes a little less each week, how he likes his milk, which shirt he calls his super shirt, drop-offs, pickups, grocery runs with him riding in the cart like it was a race car. At night, instead of coming home wired from work and tension, I'd read him the same books over and over until his eyes finally closed. No slammed doors, no cold silence, just a tired dad and a little boy breathing easy. It took me a while to see it, but it was there. Noah was whining less, sleeping deeper, fewer bad dreams, fewer outbursts. It hit me that my son seemed more at peace without the perfect family I was trying so hard to keep. One night, after I'd carried Noah to bed and stepped over the minefield of toys in the hallway, I ended up alone in the living room. No TV on, just me, the couch, and the kind of quiet that makes you think. I found myself drifting back to that 8-year-old kid in the old apartment, the one staring at a note on the counter because his dad had decided bills were heavier than his own son. Back then, I swore I'd never be that man. I'd never walk out on my family. And for a long time, I thought staying in a broken marriage was how you keep that promise. Suck it up, take the hit, keep the picture on the wall looking good. But looking at Noah now, safer, calmer, actually smiling more, it hit me. I did leave a marriage. I did walk away from a woman. What I didn't walk away from was my son. My marriage failed, but my promise to my son did not. These days, there are no hidden cameras in my house. If something's recording, everyone knows about it. I'm done living with secrets in the walls. As Noah got older, I knew I couldn't just say, "Mom's gone," and leave it at that. Kids fill in blanks with things that are worse than the truth. So I started giving him pieces he could handle. Mom made some bad choices. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't because of you. Simple, honest, age-appropriate. I made myself one more promise. I would never use him as a weapon. No tossing poison about Melissa into his ears just because the court sided with me. He deserves a childhood, not a custody war. I also started therapy, not because I'm weak, but because I don't want my son growing up with a father who bleeds resentment all over him. I had to deal with my anger, my shame, my need to always be the strong one. The cameras showed me the truth about my marriage. Therapy showed me the truth about myself. Slowly, the house got quieter in a different way. Less suspicion, fewer shadows, even if there was one less adult living in it. If you're listening to this, and you're a guy who's just tried to do it right, go to work, pay the bills, be there when you can. This part is for you. I'm not sitting here pretending I was a perfect husband. I worked too much. I missed some moments. I got short-tempered when I was tired. But I showed up. I put food on the table. I stayed when things got hard. And if that's you too, you need to hear this. You are not an idiot for believing in your marriage. Trust is not the mistake. The person who spits on that trust is the problem. Sometimes walking away from a lie isn't abandonment. Sometimes it's the only way to protect your kid from growing up thinking that betrayal and chaos are normal. Noah doesn't have a perfect family photo anymore. But he has something better. He knows without a doubt that his dad is here. That when I say I'll be there, I am. You can't control if someone cheats on you, but you can control the kind of father, the kind of man you decide to be after. So that's the whole thing. An 8-year-old kid reading a goodbye note on a kitchen counter, growing up obsessed with not becoming his father, building a marriage, a house, a perfect family, and then watching it all crack open because of a few hidden cameras he installed to keep everyone safe. Those cameras became more than security. They were a mirror I never asked for. They showed me the ugliest truth about my marriage and forced me to decide what kind of man, what kind of father I was going to be. If you're sitting in suspicion or picking up the pieces after being betrayed, hear me. You're not crazy and you're not alone. Your worth isn't measured by someone else's ability to stay loyal. My job now is simple: protect my son, keep my integrity, and not let what was done to me turn me into something I'm not. Sometimes protecting your family doesn't mean staying. It means having the courage to leave the lie. If any part of this hit home, share it, drop your story in the comments, and subscribe. You never know who might need to hear that they're not the only one.